I'm here with Gary Reynolds, Chief Investment Officer at Courtiers, and Paul Kemsley, Head of Private Client Team. Hi Gary, hi Paul.
Morning.
Yeah.
I wanted to get you both together to talk about the nature of Courtiers structurally and the vertical integration of the business and how that benefits clients in terms of the fact that you've got direct communication towards each other. So, Paul, you're dealing with clients on a daily basis and they'll be asking various questions about their investments. How does having such close access to the investment team support your communications with clients?
Oh, it's a unique selling point of Courtiers, I'd say, because if we get a question that we can't answer, obviously we're pretty knowledgeable as a team anyway, but if we have specific queries from clients that we don't necessarily know the answer to, or they want to dive into it into a lot more detail, I can just pop up to here, speak to Gary or any of the team, and we'll get an answer straight away. If they're not available, then we'll send an email and we'll certainly get an answer back to that client.
I actually think the most important aspect of it is the close relationships between the investment team and the advisory team. I don't think anyone on the advisory team, certainly not anyone who's been there for a while, would think twice about coming up and speaking to anybody on the investment team.
Absolutely, I agree. Anything. They're very approachable, you know, even in terms of client meetings, if there's a particular, you know, I know I've invited Gary into a few client meetings recently just to talk about some of the performance around the fund, what's going on, even looking forward into the future. And it just adds that extra depth, I think, to what we're planning for those clients, and they see, you know, the person behind who's running the money effectively.
Gary, how does it feel for yourself and for the investment team to have the communications with the advisors? Essentially, you're not just sitting managing funds all day. You're actually closer to the client relationship as well. How does that affect the way that your team works?
It has a profound effect because members of the investment team get to meet the clients. They're coming face to face with the people whose assets they are running, and they therefore understand that what we do have real outcomes on people's lives. Now, I don't want it to sound a bit trite, but what we do matters to people at a very, very deep level. And I always try and say to particularly young trainee analysts when they come onto team, never forget that there is somebody who's reliant on this capital. And I think if you can get that mentality into our industry, you're going to snuff out a lot of the bad practice that's gone previously on well documented failures and that. Because if you just sit behind a desk as an investment manager and you never meet the people that you're running money for, all you think about is, can you beat your opposition and how much money can you make? But it's not about that. It's about whether the capital will deliver. So I am a massive advocate of young analysts getting in and meeting clients, and that's why we make sure we get them on their feet. They turn up at the annual client seminars, and then it becomes, what they're doing becomes real. And at Courtiers, everything gears towards that client outcome, that you want somebody to enjoy the best standard of living they possibly can for the remainder of their life, and we should run the money with that in mind.
Gary, you mentioned the client seminars. Question really for you both. How's your experience when the clients all get together, get to meet? Paul, how do you feel meeting your clients and other advisors' clients together, and the investment team being around as well, the light lunch that follows the presentations? Share your experience.
Yeah, really enjoy it, to be honest. Since I've been with Courtiers, 11 years now, we've done them every year, and a great way of meeting a number of clients, not just my own, in a couple of hours. You know, we sit down for lunch, they get a good in-depth sort of presentation from the investment team, again, bringing alive the money, and it's in a form that is understandable to the clients as well. So they're really in tune with how their money is being managed, number one. And as I say, it's integral to show, well, like kind of what we're doing today, I suppose, that, you know, we're in sync with each other as well in terms of, you know, it's vital. At the end of that money, that planning that I do, the money that Gary's running, there's a client at the end of the process effectively that we need to be sure is living their lifestyle to how they can, or you're getting the growth they need, getting the income they need through cash flow that we do, but ultimately the performance that Gary brings to the table. So no, in light of those seminars, I think they are a great way of bringing it all together in that couple of hours. Finishing with a nice lunch obviously helps, but no, I think it's great. We can get round a lot of clients in a short space of time and enjoy the presentation. It's in an environment that's not quite as formal as a meeting as well, so it works. You can get to know the clients a little bit better.
Would you agree, Gary? Anything to add?
Oh, I love them. I think they're a great. You get to know a lot of people very well. We've got clients who've been clients of Courtiers for over 30 years. So it's a great chance to catch up. I mean, there's a very human side to it, and I think that's to be encouraged as well, because any youngster, anybody watching this who's thinking of coming into this business, either the investment management side or the advisory side or on the accounting side, or whichever way they're coming in, or if you've got a child or a grandchild thinking of coming in, I'd say to anybody considering that the most important thing is, or the most exciting thing is, you will get to know people very well over a very long period, and you get the stories, and for me as a young man in the business, and particularly when the business was young back in 1982 when we kicked it off, when I was young, we got a lot of guidance. I always said we're fabulous clients that paid us to give them advice and look after their affairs, and then gave us advice for nothing. And I know if you talk to Jamie about this, he would say exactly the same. So it's a fantastic business, but the money's one thing, but it fundamentally is a people business.
Paul, how much of your job is emotional versus money management?
We understand that money isn't just money. It's about the emotional conversations we have with our clients as well. You're talking about some highly emotional topics sometimes. Money in itself is emotive, in terms of for the clients. No matter how much you've got, you want to ensure that pot of money is going to last you throughout the rest of your life. Where we deal with clients at that particular point in time. So you are talking about some hard decisions sometimes. Unfortunately, we lose clients as well, sort of passing away. So it can get emotional. You really get to know those clients really well during those times, and that adds to our planning. And we want to do the best that we can for those clients. And it is down to that emotional connection sometimes you have with them, and that relationship that you build over the years, and really get to know not only that client but their family, what they like to do.
And how do the resources within Courtiers support you to focus on that emotional, human side of the business?
Well, that's it. We give a license to sort of manage our own diary, so we've got as much time as possible. There's no, if we go out and see a client, we're not necessarily tied to have to move on to the next one very quickly. It's not sort of a queue. We're able to spend a good couple of hours with that particular client. Maybe take them out for a spot of lunch. Get to know them socially outside of sort of the room effectively. So you really do, go get down into the nuts and bolts of what makes those clients tick. So that helps our then decision making and our planning process to ensure that we've got money in the right places for them to live their life as they want to.
And while you're focused on that and have a very clear understanding, if not helping the clients to understand as well, their attitudes for risk and needs for risk, you and the investment team are busy making sure that those risk appetites are being met and maintained.
There has to be an absolute concrete confidence in the advisor team that the investment team will keep the mandates within the risk levels that we've agreed. That must never ever be broken. And most of the work that goes on the investment team is with the risk mitigation to make sure we stay within those risk parameters. But it's fair to say, Paul, if that was ever in doubt, the whole relationship would be destroyed. So it's vital.
Supportive of the emotional aspect of financial planning and advice and being kind of intertwined with people's lives quite intricately would be the consumer duty regulations that have recently been rolled out by the FCA. What are we doing to ensure that we're meeting those kinds of requirements with clients?
It's a massively important framework that's sort of based on the outcome for the clients. So it's assessing what we're doing and ensuring that we're giving the client and getting the best outcome from what we're doing. It used to be called treating customers fairly, but they've enhanced that, the FCA, in relation to the outcomes, and we have to be really tight and monitor what outcomes we're getting for those clients. So any feedback we get and the thing that we do, we are slightly more under the monitoring side of things on what we're doing for those clients.
Gary, investing and fund management is a very technical area. How do you make sure that clients understand what's going on?
I think Paul's earlier comment that money isn't just money is key, because what the client is not interested, they may fixate on the valuations, but what they're interested in is what they can do with their lives. And I think, therefore, you're gearing towards that. And I think, in fairness to the regulator, this is almost the final evolution of nearly 40 years of regulation on consumer duty, because when the regulation came in, you had the big bang in the 80s, but then in came regulation. First it was self-regulation, then we had statutory regulation. Obviously we had the Financial Services Act passed in 86 and was enacted in 88. You've had different regulators, FINBRA, PIA, FSA, FCA. But if you look at the evolution, it started by what was regulated, what types of functions were going to be regulated. So stockbroking, advice regulated, initially mortgage broking not regulated, but that's all changed now. Then how you did it became regulated. And the latest thing is why you do it. And I think that's where the regulators tried to go. And they said, you know, we know what we regulate, we're going to regulate how you do it. But ultimately, what matters is why you're doing it. And you're doing it because you're running someone's money and they've got goals and objectives. So it kind of hooks all the way in. And one of the knowledge exchanges recently, for any viewers looking at this, these are internal training programs that we do, and a number of people from the company speak about their different subjects. And Lloyd and Yomi covered consumer duty, which I thought was excellent. And I watched that, and I felt quite proud of what we are, because everything is geared towards that outcome. We're vertically integrated, not because we think it makes more money or it's a preference, because it just seemed to us the right way to put the whole service proposition together to make sure at the end of it we looked after the client. So in a way, this latest bat of regulation, I think, is great for us, and it's a good evolution. Now, you know, there's a lot of rules and regulations and dotting I's and crossing T's that don't get me wrong. Sometimes I wake up in the morning, roll my eyes and think, oh my goodness me, more rules and regulations. But if you look at the whole, compared to what it was 40 years ago, when in the 80s and 70s it was the Wild West, today an investor can invest with a lot more confidence and much better protection. And that's got to be a good thing. But we've always seemed to be slightly ahead of the curve. We were ahead of the curve when we turned to a fee-based proposition before it became mandatory. We were risk mapping before it became mandatory. And we seem to have got to this vertical integration seems to do the job that really consumer duty wants, which is place the client as start, middle and end of what your proposition is.
You've essentially built a whole toolkit that you know inside out. Working with yourself, Paul, we all know inside out Courtiers product.
The key for the Courtiers product, we know them inside out and can adapt them if necessary. Do you know what I mean? It won't take us long to throw a change in there if it's not quite working or we feel there's an improvement we can make. Prime example was our ISA. We moved from the normal ISA to the flexible ISA. You know, so we adapted our product to move into the realms that if you take any withdrawals from your ISA within a tax year, you can replace that amount as long as it's within the same tax year. So we evolved that product into how we wanted it to use and in line with regulations, obviously. But it was an adaptation and evolution of our ISA, and we did that fairly quickly.
Could you roll that into a British ISA?
The British ISA, well, it's in a consultation period at the moment, the British ISA, so we're not sure of the qualifying criteria of what can be invested in. Just to recap on that, it's an extra £5,000 that can be added to your £20,000 ISA allowance. So with the caveat that it's invested in British stocks and funds, we don't know really any more detail than that at the moment. So Jeremy Hunt announced that the consultation period would end in June, so we should know more then. But it's an interesting concept. The extra 5,000 into an ISA, I think, is a good thing. Would have perhaps liked to see a bit more than the 5, because ISAs have been stuck at 20,000 for quite a while. But obviously, it's to try and get British industry going again, really, which you might have a better view on that, Gary, in terms of where it would be spent and what it could
you know
achieve.
about investing in the UK, don't you, Gary? The UK Equity Income Fund.
Yeah, we would have a perfect fund for it. So we didn't lobby for it, just in case anybody thinks so. But I think it's a good idea. I think there's a lot of things we've done in this country in the past few years where we have not managed to get our companies investing enough in our own future. Rate of private investments dropped, capital investment dropped off under austerity, and we've paid the price in terms of poor productivity. Government's waking up to that thought now. You know, and the other thing that they've done is by trying to de-risk UK pension schemes and force trustees to take risk out. They encourage trustees to push their investments to third parties, and a lot of it went overseas or it went into annuities. And you know, so future improvement of the capital values of the money back in those annuities went to the shareholders of the insurance companies giving the annuities, and not to the members or the company that set the scheme up in the first place. So we've not been clever in this country with creating a good structure to encourage companies to invest. So I think the British ISA was great, but I think it's symbolic of saying, let's back Britain. But they're doing it at the right time, because UK stocks are very, very cheap at the moment and likely to be extremely good value for the next 10 years.
So sticking to client outcomes and vertical integration together, how does the vertical integration side support the ability to help clients to invest into an ISA or a pension? Talk to us about the Courtiers suite of products and how that works.
Yeah, I mean, the Courtiers suite, we've got our own ISA, our own pension, our own collective, meaning we can plan so much better around those three products using, you know, on the collective capital gains tax allowances, the pension contribution, and the ISA allowance, which we looked at. And in terms of that particular switching between the three of them, certainly this time of year we're entrenched in end of tax year, so it makes it so much easier to utilise that if our clients have got those three, and we can mix the two up, ensuring that we are meeting those allowances, giving that client a good outcome from that consumer duty side of things.
And that reduces the time it takes to manage the client's wealth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, we send an instruction that most of the advisors can do themselves, raise it. They do the client work, obviously ensure they're not the gain isn't going above the allowance, unless obviously the client wants to, and we instruct that way and done. Yeah, simple as that.
In fairness, Paul makes that sound simple as that, but that has to be done through understanding what the client wants and what their goals and objectives are at a personal level. So he's being quite modest there, because the advisory team have to work hard on maintaining those relationships so that they can make the right decisions for those clients when they're acting for them. If they didn't do that, they couldn't act with the confidence of knowing they were doing what they were doing, because they know exactly what the client's attitude to risk is, and they know what their goals are. So it's not as easy as he's very modestly made out there.
Well, that leads us back to the emotional side of yours and the advisor's roles that we were talking about before. But Paul's saying it's simple as that because he's got the resources available to do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Gary, Paul, thanks very much for your time, both of you. We'll leave it there for now, and I look forward to another chat in the near future at some point. To our viewers, we hope you found this session informative. If you do have any questions, please speak to your advisor or get in touch. Thank you.